Princess Zerathi had never expected to find love in a place like Nexus Station. The sprawling trading hub floated at the edge of Calvaran space. A dirty collection of docking bays and market halls where 1,000 different species came to buy and sell goods from across the galaxy. She had come here on a diplomatic mission, but her guards didn't know she'd slipped away from the official delegation. She wore simple clothes instead of her royal robes, and for the first time in her life, no one recognized her. That was how she met Daniel Hayes. His shop was tucked between a weapon dealer and a food stall, a modest space filled with items from Earth. He stood behind the counter organizing old books when she walked in, and he looked up with a smile that made her forget she was supposed to be looking at merchandise. "Can I help you find something?" he asked. His voice was warm and genuine, not the careful politeness she heard from courtiers. Zara picked up a small wooden box carved with strange patterns. "What is this?" "A puzzle box from Japan. You have to slide the panels in the right order to open it." Daniel came around the counter and showed her how it worked. His hands were steady and patient. "Takes most people about 10 minutes to figure it out." She tried it herself, frowning at the stubborn pieces. Daniel watched with amusement but didn't offer more help. When she finally got it open 15 minutes later, she found a tiny paper crane folded inside. "You keep that," Daniel said. "Anyone who takes the time to solve it deserves the prize." That was the beginning. Zara found excuses to return to the shop over the following weeks. Sometimes she bought things, small trinkets and books about Earth's history. Other times she just talked with Daniel. He told her about his travels between stations, the quiet life of a merchant moving from port to port. He never asked about her background, never pushed for information she wasn't ready to share. Daniel had a way of making everything seem simple. He talked about philosophy while packing shipments, quoted old Earth poets while making tea on a small burner in the back of his shop. He moved through life with an ease that Zara envied. There was no stress in him, no calculation or hidden agenda. He was just Daniel, a man who sold interesting things and seemed content with his quiet existence. "Don't you want more than this?" she asked him one evening as they sat in his shop after closing. "Don't you want to be important or powerful?" Daniel laughed softly. "I've seen what power does to people. It twists them. I'd rather have peace." Those words struck something deep in Zara's heart. She had spent her whole life surrounded by people grasping for power, scheming and plotting. Her father, the emperor, her siblings, the noble houses, all locked in their endless games. She had never wanted any of it. She just wanted to be free. 3 months after their first meeting, Daniel asked her to marry him. They were walking through the station's garden dome, an artificial forest maintained for the comfort of oxygen-breathing species. He stopped beside a fountain and took her hand. "I don't have much to offer," he said. "Just a small shop and a simple life. But I love you, and I think you love me too. Will you marry me?" Zara said yes, without hesitation. She didn't tell him she was a princess. She didn't want that to matter. For once in her life, she wanted something that was just hers, not tangled up in royal politics and duty. They married in a small ceremony on Nexus Station with only a handful of witnesses. The officiant was a retired freighter captain who performed weddings as a side business. There were no crowds, no cameras, no diplomatic representatives. Just two people making promises to each other. Zara sent a message to her family telling them she wouldn't be coming back. She didn't explain much, just that she had found a new life and wanted to live it on her own terms. She knew there would be consequences, but she didn't care. Not then. They moved into a small apartment near Daniel's shop. It had 2 rooms and a tiny kitchen, nothing like the palace she'd grown up in. But Zara loved it. She learned to cook human food following recipes Daniel taught her. She helped in the shop, talking to customers and learning about Earth's history through the items they sold. She discovered that normal life, the kind she'd never been allowed to have, was exactly what she'd always wanted. Daniel was a good husband. He was patient with her as she learned how to do basic things that common people took for granted. He never made her feel foolish for not knowing how to operate a food processor or wash clothes. He just showed her gently and laughed with her when things went wrong. At night they would lie in bed and talk about everything and nothing. Daniel told her about places he'd been, stations and planets scattered across human space. He spoke about Earth sometimes, the homeworld he'd left behind years ago. There was a sadness in his voice when he mentioned it, but he never explained why. Zara didn't push. Everyone had secrets, and she was keeping a big one herself. 6 months passed in quiet happiness. Zara almost forgot she had ever been a princess. The palace and her family felt like a dream from someone else's life. This was real. The small apartment and the merchant's shop and the man who loved her without knowing who she really was. Then one night, everything changed. They were eating dinner in their apartment when the door exploded inward. 5 figures in black armor rushed into the room, weapons raised. Zara recognized the armor immediately. Calveron Royal Guard, the elite soldiers who protected the imperial family. Princess Sarathi, the leader said, his voice distorted by his helmet. Your presence dishonors the Empire. You will return with us, or you will be eliminated. Zara stood, her heart pounding. She had known this might happen, but she'd hoped her family would just let her go. I'm not going back. I gave up my title. I'm not your princess anymore. The Emperor disagrees. The guard raised his plasma rifle. You have 10 seconds to comply. Daniel stood slowly from his chair. Zara expected him to be terrified. These were trained killers, and he was just a merchant. But when she looked at his face, something had changed. The easy smile was gone. His eyes were hard and focused in a way she'd never seen before. You need to leave, Daniel said quietly. His voice was different too, colder and full of authority. The guard leader laughed. Stay out of this, human. This doesn't concern you. She's my wife, Daniel said. That makes it my concern. He moved toward a cabinet against the wall. The guards tensed, fingers tightening on triggers. Daniel opened the cabinet slowly and reached inside. He pulled out a long case that Zara had seen before but never questioned. He'd told her it contained family heirlooms. Daniel opened the case. Inside was a sword, but not just any sword. Even from across the room, Zara could feel the energy radiating from it. The blade seemed to hum with power, and light flickered along its edge like captured lightning. The guard leader took a step back. That's impossible. You can't be. Daniel lifted the sword from the case. The moment his hand closed around the grip, the apartment filled with light. The blade sang, a sound like crystal bells and thunder combined. Daniel's entire posture changed. The gentle merchant vanished completely, replaced by something else entirely. A warrior. A killer last chance, Daniel said. Walk away. The guards opened fire. And that was when Zara learned that the man she married was not who she thought he was at all. Daniel moved faster than Zara's eyes could follow. One moment he stood by the cabinet, the next he was between her and the guards. The plasma bolts that should have killed them both simply vanished, absorbed by the sword's energy field. The blade left trails of light in the air as Daniel swung it, and each movement was precise and controlled. The first guard didn't even have time to react. Daniel's sword cut through his rifle like it was made of paper. Then the flat of the blade slammed into the guard's helmet. The soldier dropped like a stone, unconscious before he hit the floor. The armor that was supposed to withstand direct artillery hits had crumpled under the impact. The other 4 guards spread out, trying to surround Daniel. They fired from multiple angles, but it didn't matter. Daniel spun and the sword seemed to know where every shot was coming from. He deflected bolts back at the guards, shattering their weapons. One guard tried to rush him with a combat knife. Daniel sidestepped smoothly and struck the guard in the chest with his palm. The man flew backward and crashed through their dining table. Zara pressed herself against the wall, watching in shock. This wasn't possible. Daniel was a merchant. He sold books and old Earth artifacts. He made tea and quoted poetry. He didn't move like a trained killer. He didn't carry a sword that could cut through advanced military armor. 2 guards remained standing. They looked at each other, then at their fallen comrades, then back at Daniel. The sword in his hand pulsed with blue-white light. Energy crackled along its edge. Who are you? One guard demanded. Someone you don't want to fight, Daniel said. His voice was calm but carried an edge of command that made even Zara shiver. Take your people and leave. Don't come back. The guards hesitated. Then the leader, still conscious but badly dazed, spoke from where he lay on the floor. Retreat now. The 2 standing guards grabbed their fallen comrades and dragged them toward the broken door. Within seconds they were gone. The sound of their boots echoed down the hallway, then faded into silence. Daniel stood in the middle of their destroyed apartment, sword still in hand. The blade's light dimmed gradually until it looked almost normal. Almost Zara could still feel the power thrumming through it. He turned to face her and she saw the conflict in his eyes. The warrior was still there, but her husband was fighting to come back. Zara, he started, but she held up a hand to stop him. Don't. Not yet. She needed a moment to process what she'd just seen. The man she'd married for 6 months had just defeated 5 elite royal guards in under a minute. What are you? Daniel looked down at the sword. It's a long story. We have time. Our apartment is destroyed and there are unconscious soldiers in our living room. I think we can spare a few minutes for the truth. Zara heard the shake in her own voice and hated it. She was a princess of the Calveron Empire. She'd been trained to handle diplomatic crises and political intrigue, but this was different. This was personal. Daniel set the sword down carefully on the kitchen counter. It stopped humming immediately. My name really is Daniel Hayes. That part wasn't a lie. But I haven't always been a merchant. He ran a hand through his hair, and she saw how tired he suddenly looked. 20 years ago, I was a soldier. A commander, actually. I led a special military unit for Earth's defense forces. Special how? Zara asked. We fought a war. The worst war humanity ever experienced. We called it the Cascade Wars. Daniel moved to the broken window and looked out at the station. Most of the galaxy thinks it's a myth. Human propaganda to justify weapons development. But it was real. We were fighting an enemy called the They were machines, ancient artificial intelligence, that consumed entire civilizations. Zara had heard rumors about the Cascade Wars. The Calvaran Empire's official position was that humans had fabricated the whole thing to explain their military expansion. But looking at Daniel now, at the sword on the counter that could cut through matter like it wasn't there, she wondered if her people had been wrong. That sword, she said. What is it? Its name is Welsh. It's a Titan-class weapon. There are 7 of them, or there were. Each one was bonded to a specific warrior at the molecular level. They were created from collapsed star cores, forged with technology we barely understood. They were the only things that could hurt the Devourers. Daniel's expression darkened. They could also destroy planets if used at full power. That's why they called us the 7 warriors who carried these weapons. The words hung in the air. Zara had thought she was marrying a simple merchant. Instead, her husband was a legendary warrior who carried a weapon that could crack worlds. The absurdity of it would have made her laugh if she wasn't so shaken. Why didn't you tell me? She asked. Daniel turned from the window. For the same reason you didn't tell me you were a princess. I wanted to be someone else. After the war ended, I couldn't live with what I'd done, the things I'd seen, the destruction I'd caused. Yes, we saved humanity, but the cost was billions of lives. Entire worlds left as dead rocks floating in space. I was 25 years old and I had more blood on my hands than I could ever wash off. He sat down on the edge of their ruined couch, looking defeated. So I left, changed my identity, buried World Shatter in a case, and became a merchant. I swore I would never touch that sword again. For 20 years, I kept that promise. I thought I could just fade away, live a quiet life, until I died of old age. Then I met you. Zara felt tears on her cheeks and wiped them away angrily. You lied to me. Yes, and you lied to me. You're not just some trader who wanted a simple life. You're Princess Zarathi of the Calvaran Empire. I found your diplomatic credentials in your bag 2 months ago when I was looking for your station pass. Daniel smiled sadly. We both wanted to be someone else. We both found each other and thought we could leave our pasts behind. The truth of his words hit her hard. She had no right to be angry about his deception when she'd done the same thing. They'd built their marriage on a foundation of mutual lies, both running from who they really were. What happens now? Zara asked. Before Daniel could answer, alarms started blaring throughout the station. Emergency lights flashed in the corridor outside their apartment. A voice came over the station-wide communication system. All personnel to emergency stations. Unidentified military vessel approaching. This is not a drill. Daniel was on his feet immediately. He grabbed World Shatter and the sword came alive in his hand again. We need to move. Those guards didn't come alone. There's probably a ship in orbit waiting for them to report back. They're here for me, Zara said. Maybe, but the moment I activated I sent out a signal that every military in the galaxy can detect. That sword's energy signature is unique. Anyone who knows what to look for just learned that I'm alive. Daniel moved to the door, checking the corridor. We have maybe 10 minutes before this station turns into a war zone. Zara made a decision. She'd spent her whole life running from responsibility, from the weight of her title and her family's expectations. She'd married Daniel to escape all of that. But watching him now, seeing the burden he carried, she understood something important. Running didn't make the past go away. It just delayed the reckoning. Then we face it together, she said. No more lies. No more hiding. Whatever comes next, we deal with it as who we really are. Daniel looked at her for a long moment. Then he nodded. Together, they left the apartment and headed for the docking bays. Behind them, the comfortable lie they'd built their life on lay in ruins. Ahead, the truth waited with all its terrible complications. But for the first time since they'd met, they were facing it honestly. That the station shook as a ship entered the upper atmosphere too fast. World Shatter hummed in Daniel's hand. Whatever was coming, whoever was coming, they would face it. Not as a merchant and his wife, but as a princess and a worldbreaker, and the galaxy was about to remember why that second title inspired so much fear. The docking bay was chaos. People ran in every direction, trying to reach their ships before whatever was happening got worse. Daniel kept Zara close as they pushed through the crowd. World Shatter was hidden under his coat now, but she could still feel its energy pulsing like a heartbeat. They reached Daniel's ship, a small cargo vessel he'd told her he used for trade runs. Now she wondered what else he'd lied about. But when they got to the boarding ramp, someone was already waiting for them. The woman wore a Terran Defense Coalition uniform with commander insignia on her shoulders. She was tall and lean with sharp eyes that took in everything at once. Her hand rested on the pistol at her hip, but she hadn't drawn it. "Hello, Daniel," she said. "It's been a long time." Daniel stopped. Zara felt him tense beside her. "Lisa, I should have known you'd find me first. You activated what?" Every sensor array in 3 sectors picked up the signature. Commander Lisa Chen stepped away from the ship but kept her distance. "We need to talk now. We're kind of busy running for our lives," Daniel said, from the Calvaran ship in orbit. "I know. That's the least of your problems." Lisa looked at Zara. "Princess Zarathi, I presume. Your brother is on that ship. He's demanding Daniel's head for assaulting royal guards." Zara's stomach dropped. Kelthan was here. Her older brother, the crown prince who had always been their father's perfect soldier. If he'd come personally, this was serious. "How do you know who I am?" Zara asked. "I'm intelligence. It's my job to know things." Lisa turned back to Daniel. "We have bigger problems than angry princes. The reason I'm here is because you're not the only one who got activated. 3 days ago, there was a Titan-class energy signature detected near the Outer Rim. Then another one yesterday in the core worlds. Someone else is waking up the world breakers." Daniel's face went pale. "That's impossible. We all agreed to hide, to never use the weapons again." "Agreed, yes. But something's changed." Lisa pulled out a datapad and showed it to them. The screen displayed what looked like sensor readings and star charts. "These are Devourer signatures. Small ones, scout ships probably, but the pattern is unmistakable. They're waking up." The word Devourer hit Zara like a physical blow. She'd thought Daniel's stories about the Cascade Wars were exaggerated. Every military power in the galaxy said the Devourers were human fiction. But Lisa Chen was Terran Defense Coalition intelligence, and she clearly believed they were real. "How is that possible?" Daniel asked. "We shut them down. The final assault on their central nexus should have put them into permanent dormancy. Should have." "Didn't." Lisa put the datapad away. "Our scientists think the 20-year hibernation was them healing and adapting. Now they're testing our defenses, sending out scouts to see if we're still capable of fighting back. And guess what? We're not. The current military has no idea what's coming. The Titan-class weapons were all hidden or destroyed. Except they weren't destroyed, were they?" Daniel didn't answer. World Shatter pulsed under his coat. "You still have yours," Lisa continued. "Which means the others might still have theirs too. We need to find them. We need to reunite the World Breakers before the Devourers launch a full assault." "No." Daniel's voice was flat. "I'm not doing this again. I can't. Daniel, billions of people will die if I know what will happen." Daniel's shout echoed through the docking bay. People nearby stopped and stared. He lowered his voice. "I know exactly what will happen because I lived through it the first time. Do you remember the Battle of Proxima? The orbital bombardment of Kepler 442? I was there, Lisa. I gave the orders that turned those worlds into graveyards. I'm not doing it again." Zara had never seen Daniel like this. The guilt and pain in his voice made her heart ache. She put a hand on his arm. "Daniel, ... you don't understand," he said to her. "The Titan-class weapons aren't surgical tools. They're planet. Yes, we can hurt the Devourers with them, but the collateral damage is measured in extinction events. Every time I swung World Shatter at full power, I knew I was condemning thousands or millions of people to death. How do you live with that? How do you look at yourself in the mirror knowing you've killed more people than most wars in history?" Before Zara could respond, the station shook violently. Alarms blared louder. The communication system crackled to life. "Attention Nexus Station. This is Prince Kelthan of the Calvaran Empire. We are boarding the station to retrieve Princess Zarathi and arrest the criminal, Daniel Hayes. Do not interfere or you will be considered hostile." Lisa cursed. "Your brother doesn't waste time." "He never does," Zara said. She looked at Daniel. "We need to leave now. Too late." Lisa pointed at the docking bay entrance. Calvaran soldiers were flooding in, full battle armor and heavy weapons. They moved with military precision, securing exit points and advancing toward the ships. Daniel drew the blade ignited with its characteristic blue-white light. "Get behind me." "Wait." Zara stepped in front of him instead. "Let me try something first." She walked toward the advancing soldiers. Daniel called her name, but she ignored him. When she was about 10 meters from the lead squad, she stopped and pulled back her hood. "I am Princess Zarathi," she announced, her voice carrying the royal authority she'd been trained to use since childhood. "Stand down." The soldiers hesitated. Their leader stepped forward and removed his helmet. To Zara's surprise, it was Captain Voran, who had served in the Palace Guard when she was young. He'd taught her basic combat when she was a teenager. Princess Voran said, "Prince Kelthan has ordered your return to Calveran space. Please come with us peacefully, and if I refuse, then we have orders to use force." Voran looked genuinely pained. "Please don't make this harder than it has to be." Before Zara could answer, another figure emerged from the ranks of soldiers. Kelthan was tall and imposing in his ceremonial armor, every inch the crown prince. He looked at Zara with disappointment and anger. "Little sister," he said, "you've caused quite a scene. Father is not pleased." "Father is never pleased," Zara shot back. "I'm not coming back, Kelthan. I gave up my title. I have a life here now. With a human merchant, a commoner." Kelthan's eyes shifted to Daniel, who still stood with World Shatter drawn. "Although our intelligence suggests he's not just a merchant, is he?" Captain Voran's men reported being attacked by a warrior with an energy weapon of unknown origin. "Unknown to you, maybe," Lisa interjected. She'd moved to stand beside Daniel. "Prince Kelthan, I'm Commander Lisa Chen of the Terran Defense Coalition. The man you're trying to arrest is under Earth's protection." Kelthan laughed. "Earth has no authority here." "Maybe not, but Earth has something you need. Information about an enemy that's about to attack every civilized world in the galaxy." Lisa gestured to the datapad still in her hand. "The Devourers are real, Prince Kelthan. They're waking up, and your military is completely unprepared to fight them." "Human propaganda," Kelton dismissed. "The Cascade Wars were a fabrication used to justify your species' weapons development." "Then how do you explain this?" Lisa threw the datapad to him. Kelthan caught it and glanced at the screen. His expression didn't change, but Zara knew her brother well enough to see the moment of doubt. The station shook again, harder this time. The lights flickered. An explosion boomed somewhere in the distance, and the artificial gravity stuttered for a second before stabilizing. "What was that?" Voran asked. Lisa checked her communicator and her face went white. "We have a problem. A ship just came out of slipspace at the edge of the system. It's broadcasting a signature that matches Devourer technology." "Impossible," Kelthan said. "Look at your own sensors then." Lisa's voice was grim. "It's small, probably a scout, but it's definitely not any known species design, and it's headed straight for this station." Daniel stepped forward. World Shatter blazed brighter in his hand. "How long until it gets here?" 20 minutes, maybe less." Kelthan looked at the datapad again, then at the sword in Daniel's hand, then at his sister. Zara could see him calculating, weighing options. He was a soldier before he was a prince. He knew a real threat when he saw one. "Explain that weapon," Kelthan demanded. "It's called World Shatter," Daniel said. "It's a Titan-class armament, one of 7 created during the Cascade Wars. It's one of the only things in the galaxy that can damage Devourer technology, and you just happen to have it. I was one of the the warriors who carried these weapons." Daniel met Kelthan's eyes without flinching. 20 years ago, I helped end the last Devourer war. Now it looks like I might have to do it again." The station shook a third time. This time the lights went out completely for 5 seconds before emergency power kicked in. In the red glow of the emergency lighting, everyone looked like ghosts. Kelthan made his decision. He handed the datapad back to Lisa. "Captain Voran, evacuate our people to the ship." "Prepare for emergency departure, Your Highness." Voran looked confused. "Do it now." Kelthan turned to Daniel. "I don't trust you, human, but my sister chose you, and she's many things, but she's not a fool. If there's even a chance this Devourer threat is real, I need to see it with my own eyes." Daniel nodded slowly. "You'll get your proof in about 15 minutes. Then we wait," Kelthan said. He looked at the Devourer scout ship arrived exactly 14 minutes later. Through the observation windows, Zara watched it materialize from slipspace like a wound opening in reality. The ship was wrong in a way that made her eyes hurt to look at. It wasn't built so much as grown, organic curves mixed with geometric patterns that defied normal physics. By the ancestors, Kelthan breathed. Even he couldn't maintain his skepticism in the face of that thing. The scout didn't attack immediately. It just hung there in space, scanning the station with energy pulses that made all their instruments scream. Then, as suddenly as it appeared, it vanished back into slipspace. The docking bay was silent for a long moment. Then Kelthan turned to Lisa. "How many of those things are out there?" We've detected 17 scout ships in the last week, that we know of. There could be hundreds more. Lisa looked tired. They're mapping our defenses, testing response times, gathering intelligence. It's what you do before an invasion. Kelthon looked at Daniel, really looked at him this time. You fought these things before, yes, and you won. We survived. That's not the same as winning. Daniel lowered World Shattered, but the blade stayed lit. The Cascade Wars lasted 7 years and cost billions of lives. We managed to put the Devourers into hibernation, but we couldn't destroy them, and now they're back. Then we need those weapons you mentioned, Kelthon said. The other 6 Titan-class armaments. Where are they? That was how the journey began. Kelthon agreed to an uneasy truce. He would help find the other world breakers if Daniel agreed to answer for assaulting the Royal Guards afterward. It wasn't perfect, but it was enough. Lisa provided intelligence and ship support, and Zara, to everyone's surprise, including her own, insisted on coming along. Their first destination was an ice planet called Vrinfor, 3 weeks from Nexus Station. According to Lisa's records, Gregory Kent had been living there for the past 15 years as a monk in a refugee monastery. They found him teaching children in a converted cargo bay that served as a school. He was older than Daniel, maybe 50, with gray hair and kind eyes. He looked up when they entered and his expression barely changed. I wondered when you'd come, Gregory said. He dismissed the children, who ran off laughing and playing. I felt World Shatter activate. Couldn't miss that signature. We need you, Greg, Daniel said. The Devourers are back. Gregory stood slowly, like his joints hurt. I know. I saw the reports. I was hoping you'd handle it without me. Can't do this alone. You know that they talked for over an hour. Gregory had spent 15 years trying to atone for what he'd done during the war. He'd built this monastery, taken in refugees, taught children, tried to save as many lives as he'd taken, but it wasn't enough. It would never be enough. Finally, he agreed to come. He led them to a chapel carved into the ice, where he retrieved Void Fang from beneath the altar. The weapon was a spear that crackled with dark energy. When Gregory held it, Zara saw the change in him. The peaceful monk vanished, replaced by the warrior underneath. But something was wrong. Gregory's connection to Void Fang was weak, unstable. 15 years of guilt and non-use had damaged the bond. He could still fight, but not at full strength. Their next stop was an asteroid field in lawless space. Nicole Pierce had become exactly what Gregory had tried not to be. She'd embraced violence, using Starbreaker to carve out a criminal empire. Her base was hidden inside a hollowed-out asteroid, protected by mercenaries and automated defenses. Getting in required a fight. Nicole didn't respond to messages or diplomatic requests. Daniel had to challenge her directly, and the battle between World Shatter and Starbreaker nearly destroyed the entire asteroid. Starbreaker was a massive hammer that could crack ships in half with a single swing. Nicole wielded it with brutal efficiency, and she was fresh while Daniel was rusty. Zara watched in horror as the 2 Titan-class weapons clashed. Each impact released enough energy to vaporize a building. The asteroid's interior cracked and buckled. Nicole fought like she had nothing to lose, laughing as she swung the hammer at Daniel's head. You got soft, old man, Nicole taunted. 20 years playing merchant made you weak. Weak enough to beat you, Daniel shot back. He sidestepped her next swing and brought World Shatter down on the hammer's handle. The 2 weapons screamed as their energies collided. The fight ended when part of the asteroid began to decompress. Nicole's mercenaries were evacuating and she had to choose between continuing the fight or saving her people. She chose her people, which told Zara something important. For all her brutality, Nicole still cared about something. Fine, Nicole said after they'd sealed the breach. I'll come, but only because fighting Devourer sounds more fun than running this dump. The 3rd world breaker was harder to find. Marcus Webb had been committed to a psychiatric facility on a Terran colony world. When they arrived, the doctors warned them that Marcus wasn't stable. The weapon he'd carried, Dimension's Edge, allowed him to tear holes in space itself. But using it had fractured his mind. Leaving him caught between dimensions, they found Marcus in a quiet room, staring at walls only he could see. He was thin and pale, and he didn't seem to recognize Daniel at first. Then something shifted in his eyes. Danny, is that you? Marcus's voice was distant and strange. Or are you the other Dunny? The one from the mirror dimension? It's me, Marcus. The real me. Daniel knelt beside his old friend. We need your help. Help, help, help. Marcus laughed, but it wasn't a happy sound. The Devourers are singing again. I can hear them between the spaces. They're coming back and we can't stop them because we're broken. All broken. Shattered like glass across infinity. It took hours of patient talking to get through to whatever part of Marcus was still functional. Finally, he agreed to try. Though he warned them he might not survive using Dimension's Edge again. The weapon was stored in a vault beneath the facility. When Marcus touched it, reality flickered around him like a bad video feed. The fourth weapon, Chaos Crown, had belonged to someone who died 5 years ago, but Lisa's intelligence suggested the weapon still existed in a black site military facility that officially didn't exist. Getting in required all of Daniel's combat skills and Zara's unexpected talent for Kelver and stealth technology. They infiltrated the facility at night. Zara used codes she remembered from her time in the palace to bypass security systems. Daniel dealt with the guards, trying not to kill anyone. They found Chaos Crown in a research lab, being studied by scientists who had no idea what they were really dealing with. The weapon looked like a circlet made of fractured reality, pieces of space and time woven into a crown shape. Daniel tried to claim it, but Chaos Crown rejected him violently, throwing him across the room. The weapon wasn't bonded to him. Then Zara touched it. She didn't mean to. She just wanted to make sure Daniel wasn't hurt. But the moment her fingers brushed the crown, it reacted. Energy surged through her, and suddenly she could see things she shouldn't be able to see. The probability lines of the future. The weak points in reality. The fundamental rules that held the universe together. Chaos Crown bonded with her. Daniel tried to object, saying it was too dangerous, but the weapon had made its choice. Zara was a world breaker now, whether she wanted to be or not. They spent weeks traveling from world to world, and with each stop, Zara learned more about the man she'd married. She saw the respect other soldiers showed him, the fear in the eyes of people who knew what he'd done. She listened to stories about the Cascade Wars, about battles where entire fleets were destroyed in minutes, where planets burned and billions died. But she also saw the guilt that haunted all of them. Gregory with his quiet desperation for redemption, Nicole with her aggressive deflection of any real emotion, Marcus barely holding on to sanity with both hands, and Daniel, carrying the weight of command. The burden of having made decisions that killed so many to save even more. At night, when they were alone in whatever ship or station they'd stopped at, Zara practiced with Chaos Crown. The weapon taught her things, showed her how to manipulate reality in small ways. She could make objects appear or disappear, bend probability to avoid attacks, create temporary barriers of frozen time. Daniel watched her train with worry in his eyes. "You don't have to do this. We can find another way." "There is no other way," Zara said. She'd accepted the truth. Her royal title, her desire for a simple life, none of it mattered anymore. The Devourers were coming and she had power now. Power to help, to fight, to protect the people she cared about. Besides, someone needs to watch your back. He smiled at that, the first real smile she'd seen from him in weeks. "Thank you." "For what?" "For not leaving, for staying even after you learned who I really am." Zara took his hand. "We made vows, remember, for better or worse. I don't think it gets much worse than an apocalyptic war against machine gods, so we might as well stick together." They had 4 world breakers now, and 4 Titan-class weapons, but there was supposed to be 7. The last 2 weapons, Infinity's Grasp and Eclipse, were still missing. Lisa's intelligence had no leads on them. Whoever carried those weapons had hidden even better than Daniel. As their small fleet prepared to return to Earth for strategic planning, long-range sensors detected something alarming. Devourer ships were appearing across the galaxy in greater numbers. The Devourers didn't give them time to prepare. 3 days after returning to Earth's orbital defense zone, the invasion began in full force. Ships emerged from slipspace by the thousands, blocking out the stars with their twisted hulls. They came in waves, each larger than the last, surrounding Earth and its colonies like a closing fist. The Terran Defense Coalition scrambled every ship they had. Fighters launched from carriers. Destroyers moved into formation. Orbital platforms activated their weapons. Kelthan had brought Calveron reinforcements, over 100 warships that took up positions alongside the human fleet. Other species sent what they could. But most of the galaxy still didn't believe the threat was real until it was too late. The first battle lasted 6 hours. Conventional weapons barely scratched the Devourer hulls. Energy shields that could stop nuclear weapons simply failed against their reality-bending technology. Ships exploded, stations burned, and the defensive line began to collapse. That was when the Worldbreakers entered the fight. Daniel led them to the Mars defense line, the last barrier before Earth itself. For warriors against an army that had consumed civilizations, it should have been impossible, but the Titan-class weapons were never meant for fair fights. Daniel swung World Shatter, and space itself cracked. The energy released from a single strike vaporized 3 Devourer ships and sent shockwaves through their formation. Gregory's Void Fang created zones where enemy weapons simply stopped working, their energy drained into nothing. Nicole hammered through enemy ranks with Starbreaker, each impact shattering holes like they were made of glass. Marcus was the most terrifying. Dimension's Edge let him cut holes between realities, opening portals that swallowed entire Devourer squadrons. Ships would be there 1 second and gone the next, dumped into other dimensions or torn apart by the transition. But each use cost him. Zara watched as Marcus screamed with effort, his body flickering like he was only partially real. And Zara herself, wearing Chaos Crown, discovered what the weapon could really do. She could see probability lines, the billion different ways the battle might unfold. She warped reality around enemy formations, making their shots miss, causing their systems to malfunction, creating pockets where the laws of physics worked against them instead of for them. Together, the 4 World Breakers held the line. They destroyed hundreds of Devourer ships. They saved thousands of lives, but it wasn't enough. For every ship they destroyed, 10 more appeared. The enemy just kept coming, an endless tide of machines that felt no fear and knew no mercy. Then the mothership arrived. It came out of slipspace directly ahead of Mars, a construct so massive it created its own gravity well. The thing was the size of Earth's moon, a sphere of interlocking machinery and twisted geometry that hurt to look at. Energy signatures spiked across every sensor. This wasn't just a ship, it was the Devourer consciousness itself, the central intelligence that controlled all the others. Daniel felt his blood run cold. He'd seen a mothership once before, at the final battle of the Cascade Wars. That one had been smaller than this. The Devourers had grown stronger during their hibernation, not weaker. "We can't fight that," Gregory said over the communication channel. His voice shook. "Not with 4 weapons. We needed all 7 last time and we barely survived." "Then we improvise," Daniel said, but he didn't know how. The mothership was already charging its main weapon, a beam that could cut a planet in half. If it fired on Earth, billions would die before they could evacuate. Zara's mind raced. Chaos Crown showed her the possibilities, the branching paths of the future. In most of them, they lost. Earth burned. Humanity fell. The Devourers spread across the galaxy, consuming everything. But there was one path, slim and uncertain, where they might win. "I have an idea," she said, "but it's going to sound crazy. We're 4 people fighting a moon-sized death machine." Nicole laughed grimly. "Crazy is all we've got," Zara explained quickly. "If they could coordinate all 4 Titan-class weapons to fire simultaneously at precise points around the mothership, they might be able to create a contained dimensional rift. It would trap the Devourer consciousness without destroying everything around it." Marcus's fractured mind could see the dimensional weak points they needed to target. The problem was that it had never been tested. The energy requirements were massive. If they got the timing wrong by even a microsecond, the rift would go wild and consume everything, including them. And Marcus would have to guide them while maintaining the largest dimensional tear he'd ever attempted. It would almost certainly kill him. "I can do it," Marcus said. His voice was clearer than it had been in years, like facing death had brought him back to himself. "I can see the paths. I can show you where to aim. But someone needs to anchor the rift or it'll tear the whole system apart." Daniel understood immediately. "That's me. World Shatter can serve as the anchor point." It meant channeling more energy than any human body could survive. Even with the weapon's protection, he'd be lucky to last 30 seconds. "No," Zara said. "We'll do it together. Chaos Crown can reinforce you, rewrite the rules that say you should die. If we combine our weapons' power, we can both survive." "Zara, I can't ask you to." "You're not asking, I'm telling you." She flew her fighter closer to his, their ships almost touching. Through the viewport she could see his face. "We made vows, remember? I'm not letting you die alone." There was no time to argue. The mothership's weapon was nearly charged. Earth had minutes at most. Daniel looked at Gregory and Nicole through the communication screen. "You two handle the lateral anchor points. Marcus guides everyone. Zara and I take the primary position." They moved into formation. 4 fighters against a monster that blotted out the stars. The Devourer consciousness recognized the threat. Thousands of smaller ships broke off from the fleet to intercept them, but Kelthan and the combined human Calvaran fleet moved to block, buying them precious seconds. "Now," Marcus screamed. His fighter began to glow as Dimension's Edge activated at maximum power. Reality cracked around him, fractures spreading through space like broken glass. Daniel and Zara flew directly at the mothership. World Shatter blazed in Daniel's hands, brighter than it had ever been. Chaos Crown burned on Zara's head, rewriting the universe around them. Gregory and Nicole fired their weapons from opposite sides, creating the framework for the rift. The 4 Titan-class weapons discharged simultaneously. The energy release was blinding. Space screamed as dimensions collided. The rift opened a wound in reality that pulled at the mothership with impossible force. The Devourer consciousness fought back. It fired its main weapon at Daniel and Zara, a beam of pure annihilation. But Chaos Crown bent probability around them, making the impossible shot miss by centimeters. The beam carved through space where they should have been, close enough that their shields failed and their fighters began to break apart. Daniel, Lord, shattered directly into the rift's edge. The weapon's power flowed through him like liquid fire. Burning through his cells and rewriting his DNA, he screamed in agony but held on, using World Shatter as the anchor point that kept the rift stable. Zara poured Chaos Crown's energy into him, literally rewriting the physical laws that said he should die. She could see his body breaking down at the molecular level, and she forced it to hold together. Through sheer will and the weapon's reality-altering power, the mothership was being pulled into the rift. Its countless systems fought against the pull, gravity drives screaming, weapons firing wildly. But the combined power of 4 Titan-class weapons was too much. Slowly, impossibly, the massive construct began to slide toward the dimensional tier. Then Marcus died. His fighter exploded as his body finally gave out under the strain. But in his last moment, with perfect clarity, he completed the dimensional calculations and locked the rift's coordinates. Dimension's edge detonated, and the resulting shockwave pushed the mothership fully into the rift. The Devourer consciousness screamed across every frequency as it was torn from normal space. Thousands of smaller ships went dark simultaneously, their connection to the central intelligence severed. The rift began to collapse, pulling the dead fleet in with it, but it was collapsing too fast. Daniel and Zara were too close to the edge. They couldn't get clear in time. Daniel felt the pull dragging them toward the closing wound in reality. Their fighters were already coming apart. "I love you," Zara said over the private channel. "I love you too," Daniel replied. He prepared for the end, grateful that at least they'd be together. Then someone grabbed him, not physically, but with a weapon's power. 2 new energy signatures appeared from nowhere, impossibly strong. The last 2 Titan-class weapons, Infinity's Grasp and Eclipse, had finally revealed themselves. 2 fighters appeared beside them, pulling them away from the rift with energy tethers. The rift collapsed completely, sealing the Devourers away in a dimensional prison. Silence fell across the battlefield. Daniel looked at the new arrivals. The fighters bore no identification, but the energy signatures were unmistakable. The missing world breakers, the ones who'd hidden so well that even Lisa's intelligence couldn't find them, had been watching the whole time. They'd waited until the critical moment, then intervened to save the day, before Daniel could hail them.